that reads, sometimes football decisions are incredibly difficult, and this is one of those instances. Considering our current roster, we have made the tough decision to release Justin Tucker. Justin created many significant and unforgettable moments in Ravens history. His reliability, focused drive, resilience, and extraordinary talent made him one of the league's best kickers for over a decade. We are grateful for Justin's many contributions while playing for the Ravens. We sincerely wish him and his family the very best in this next chapter of their lives. For much more on this, let's go ahead and welcome in our own lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. JJ, let's just start with your reaction to this news.
You know, Jordan, ultimately not a huge surprise when you consider, look, the Ravens are saying this is a football decision. Well, they made a football decision on the last day of the NFL draft when they drafted Tyler Loop, the kicker out of Arizona. It was the first kicker, in fact, in Baltimore Ravens history that the organization had ever drafted. And so you have a 35-year-old kicker in Justin Tucker coming off what was by far his worst season as a professional, not just his own worst season as a professional. When you consider how great he has been on the field, you noted that he has the highest and best percentage in terms of field goal makes in NFL history, but it was below average among current NFL kickers. In fact, it's never been easier to make a 50-plus yard field goal in the NFL these days, and he really, really struggled. In fact, the last 2 years, he has made, I believe, just 7 out of 16 50-plus yard attempts. So you have him coming off the worst season of his career. You obviously have allegations totaling more than a dozen from various spas and massage wellness centers across the Baltimore area. And then you draft a kicker who just made a 62-yard field goal in his college career, was pretty accurate there for the Wildcats. And so not a huge surprise that ultimately the Ravens are parting ways with Tucker, but obviously it's obviously a shock anytime one of the best winds up getting released.
Most definitely. Well, you alluded to it that the team insists that this is a football decision. As you mentioned, Tucker's struggles last season were undeniable. But at this point in time, where does the NFL's investigation into all those allegations stand right now?
Yeah, so I just got a text from an NFL spokesman who's told me that the matter remains under review. So the NFL has not concluded its investigation and the process that it has been undergoing for really the last several months. When these allegations first came up, I believe it was around January or so. Then in February, and the Baltimore Banner has been at the forefront of the reporting on this, they reported that the NFL investigators had spoken to some massage therapists. Typically, almost always in NFL investigations, they talk to as many people as they possibly can before getting to the accused. So it is unclear at this moment whether the NFL investigators have spoken with Justin Tucker or not. Also very important to note that he has denied all allegations of wrongdoing. And again, in the statement, the Ravens make no note of that. In fact, up until this release, they had said that they would wait on any investigative findings before making a decision. And so, with no end or no conclusion to the investigation, with Justin Tucker continuing to deny these allegations, the Ravens are saying it is a football-only decision, and it's impossible to know if these allegations had not come to the light, whether or not the Ravens would have drafted a kicker in the 6th round, or if Justin Tucker would be released today. But the facts are that that's what's taking place now.
All right, and just lastly here, just to follow up on that, JJ, as the investigation remains open with the NFL, considering all the off-the-field factors with Justin Tucker, how likely, in your opinion, is it that another team picks him up before next season?
So I think that any team would be wanting to wait until the results of the investigation are known, right? I do not foresee an NFL world where someone is going to sign Justin Tucker before the NFL's investigation has concluded, before those findings are made public. Again, he continues to deny all allegations. If the investigation proves him correct, I could absolutely see Justin Tucker on an NFL team at some point in 2025. If the investigation shows what many of these massage therapists are claiming to ultimately be true, it would be difficult for someone who, again, in their mid-30s, who has struggled more than he ever has in his career, find it hard to believe that someone would ultimately sign him for this upcoming season.
All right, JJ, we will leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us here live on CBS Sports HQ with the latest as the Ravens have released kicker Justin Tucker. Here is the look at the statement released just moments ago by the Baltimore Ravens that shows no mention about the sexual misconduct investigation that is ongoing by the NFL, but does read that Justin created many significant and unforgettable moments in Ravens history. It goes on to say that they are incredibly grateful for Justin's many contributions while playing for the Baltimore Ravens, and they sincerely wish him and his family the very best in this next chapter of their lives. We'll continue to keep you posted on all the latest developments out of the Baltimore Ravens.
We've got breaking news coming from college football. Michigan is expected to suspend head coach Sharpe Moore for 2 games of the 2025 season. That's according to ESPN. The self-imposed suspension reportedly stems from the Connor Stalions advanced scouting scandal and ties back to Moore allegedly deleting text messages during the investigation. Moore will be suspended for the 3rd and 4th week of the season. That includes a game against Central Michigan and the Wolverines' Big Ten opener against Nebraska. Those games were on September 13th and the 20th. So you start the year from Michigan's perspective at home against New Mexico before going to Oklahoma on September 6th, and then the 2 games that Moore will be suspended coming from this self-imposed suspension. Let's continue this conversation now and bring in our college football expert, Brandon Marcello. Brandon, first, just your reaction to hearing that Michigan going this route and self-imposing this suspension.
Yeah, you just keep thinking that this sign-stealing scandal was in the past, but here it is again popping up once again 3 years later. I mean, it's crazy. But, you know, Coach Moore, it's interesting that they're able to select what games they're going to be able to suspend him for, and he gets to get coach at Oklahoma during the season, which, by the way, is his alma mater. So they're allowing him that opportunity to go coach those games. Also, the difference here for them is that he also cannot coach in practices during those 2 weeks. So preparation, handling everything as the CEO of this program, Coach Moore is going to be unable to do that during Central Michigan and the Nebraska weeks again in the Big Ten.
What do you make of the timing of this? Because you kind of alluded to one, we thought that we were behind the entire Connor Stalions situation, and now here it comes back up again right now. So why are we hearing this now, and why are we getting suspension currently instead of last year or sometime in the past?
Well, obviously, they're trying to get ahead of this, and, you know, that's the whole purpose of self-imposed sanctions. Anything you want to do with suspensions, you want to try and get ahead of what the NCAA is doing. Obviously, the 2 of them have been in contact with each other, discussing what was possible, all of the things they've kind of gathered with all this. And again, NCAA investigations take a while. It's a very slow-moving organization, even with enforcement. We've seen that over the years, of course. So this is something that could have happened anytime during any point here in this offseason. Obviously, they weren't anywhere close to anything last season. So interesting, though, that they're able to pick and choose which games, especially after the season has started, not week 1 and week 2. They're able to pick those 3rd and 4th games. Very interesting from that standpoint.
Yeah, it does just seem a little bit odd, and you look at it, so that game 4 being a Big Ten season opener on the road, likely going to have a true freshman QB under the helm at Bryce Underwood. What type of impact do you think this might have on him, knowing, as you mentioned, that Sharpe Moore will not be able to coach in the weeks leading up to those 2 games?
All right, talk about pressure. You're not only a true freshman starting in your first Big Ten road game potentially here, but also look at this. I mean, you're not going to have your head coach on the sideline for the game. You're also not going to have your head coach at practices during that entire game week and preparing for this. So how do you deal with this as a quarterback, especially a freshman? It's a big question. Also, who's going to be the interim coach at this point? Is it going to be an offensive-minded coach or someone on the defense? I think for his sake, you should put an offensive coach in charge of the program that week so that it feels like that a lot more attention is being paid on him rather than a defensive-minded coach. Very interesting to see how Michigan handles this. I'm sure over the next few weeks and couple of months, they're going to discuss how to handle this on the field as well as off the field. But if Bryce Underwood ends up being your guy, the best thing you got to do for him is put an offensive-minded coach there in charge of the program and in practices, because he's going to need that extra attention.
Yeah, at least if you are getting out in front of it right now in May, we still have a little bit of time till the end of August and September gets here before they can truly figure out how they want to cover all of this at Michigan. Brandon Marcello, thank you so much. Talking a little bit about Sharpe Moore and the self-imposed 2-game suspension coming down the pipeline for him. And that 2 games will be week 3 and 4. So that's Central Michigan and at Nebraska for that Big Ten opener, like we mentioned. But he still will get to start the year as the head coach and will get to go back to his alma mater at Oklahoma.
Hôm nay mình sẽ hướng dẫn các bạn cách làm một sợi thun cột tóc đơn giản từ len nhé. Nguyên liệu của mình cần có chính là len. Mình sẽ sử dụng 3 màu sắc như thế này để làm này. Màu trắng, màu hồng và màu xanh nhá. Sẽ